You're listening to TGI Sports Talk with your host, Keith Angle, on Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning, guys. Keith Angle for TGI Sports Talk. How are you all today? Sunday, August 8th. Yesterday, August 7th, was our one-year anniversary of TGI Sports Talk, and I'm so excited to share it with all of you. 1 year. Hard to believe, right? Man, my sense of time has like gone out the window. Working from home for the last year and a half. No end in sight to that. Lots of stuff has gone down. Good morning, Dave Guyette. Good to see you this morning. Guys, real quick before I get started and welcome you all in, I want to thank all the groups, as I always do, so that you guys know if I share this to your group, there is going to be content for you. We're going to talk a little bit of Olympics today. We haven't touched on it, but I do want to talk a little bit about the medal count. We'll talk about the Olympic basketball team and the baseball team and their efforts with a gold and a silver, respectively, if I said that in the right order. We're going to talk some Major League Baseball. We'll have Mark Mancini on to talk about the National League races and maybe some of the contenders for the postseason awards. He'll be on at 10:30 Eastern time. Mark Mancini from Mancini Sports. We're going to talk NFL. We're going to talk some college football. We'll talk about the new show we have starting up. And if we have time, we'll talk college football too a little bit, as I said. But if we have some time, we'll talk NBA. NBA is going to take a back seat. Thank you, Kevin Porter. Good to see you. Always good to see new faces. Thanks for coming on today, Porter. And you tell me if I'm saying your name backwards or not. I'm reading it out as I do on the screen. So thank you for that. Congratulations on our 1 year anniversary. For you local guys, maybe we will put something together for a little get together. And you guys that want to travel to have a happy hour with us, you're welcome to do it. Listen, I also want to thank my guests from Friday. We had a few technical difficulties, but we had a really fun conversation with Louis Tiant, the legendary pitcher for the Boston Red Sox, also pitched with the Indians, the Twins, the Yankees, the Angels, the Pirates. We had a great conversation with Louis. And next week, we'll have Darrell Evans on. Darrell Evans, a 21-year Major League veteran, played with the Braves, started and ended his career with the Braves, and also played with the Giants and the Tigers. One of the most underrated players in Major League Baseball, in my mind. Oh, thank you, Kevin. Not sure why it shows up Kevin Porter, but welcome to the show. Good to have you, Kevin. Always good to have new people. So we got a lot to cover, guys. As I said, Mark Mancini will be on later. Hot and humid day here in the Northeast, by the way, for your weather report. Going to be hot for the next week. This is August weather. A birthday comes up. So the first anniversary of the show comes up, and the 60th anniversary of my birth is a week later. So we continue to age, both myself and the show. Lots coming up, too. We'll be starting the college football show on Wednesday night, 7 o'clock Eastern time, live, our TGI Sports Talk college football huddle. We're going to have a lot of fun talking about that. We're lining up some insiders to talk. I've got Larry Sorensen, who is the color analyst for Wake Forest football, will be coming on from time to time to talk about ACC football and some of the other major conferences that he's familiar with and stuff like that. I don't know what happened with the UFC fight last night, Kevin. UFC is not something I've been able to get myself into, and I probably should, because I know there's a big, following for that. I'll be glad to have a conversation with anybody. If you've got some results, I don't know. We can take a quick look here. Let's find out, Kevin. Because we like to help our peeps. So last night we had in the heavyweight division, Derek Lewis KO'd Cyril Jan, or Gain, I guess, in the third round. Jose Aldo got a decision over Pedro Munoz in the bantamweight. Welterweight, Michael Chelsea had a submission in round one against Vicente Luque. And then in the women's, we had Tisha Torres over Angela Hill. And in another bantamweight fight, there was Sung Youngdung against Casey Kenny, and Youngdung comes out there in a decision. So there you go. I've touched on something new today. Yankees are playing real good baseball, Dave Guyette, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But first off today, I'm missing some regulars today. First off today, I want to talk about the Olympics real quickly. We're going to touch on a few topics. If you guys we'll go as far as we need to in chatting about this. But if you guys have some specific comments you want to bring up, that'd be great. I did have the medal count up here, and I think I lost it. Bear with me, guys. Damn it. That's the basketball. That's the baseball. Let's just find out. Great TV, Keith. Great TV. Here's the Olympic medal count. Real quick. USA. 113 medals overall, leads China. They have 88, Japan 58, Great Britain 65. The ROC has 71. The Russians could not compete as a country. Good morning, Mickey Delaney. Mickey reminds me of the time now all the time because I have been thinking it was 5. I don't know what time my own show starts, I guess. So 6 a.m. Welcome, Mickey. Hope you're wide awake. In the gold medals, the U.S. is ahead, and today's the last day of the Olympics. I'm not sure how much competition there is. Usually the decathlon wraps up today, but they do have the closing ceremony tonight, I believe. And in the gold medals, the U.S. leads China 39-38. I want to talk a little bit quickly about the U.S. Olympic team. Yeah, we're going to get into last night was the Hall of Fame inductions for one class, and tonight's the other. We'll talk a little bit about those inductees here in a little bit when we get to the NFL portion. The U.S. Olympic. Let me change my banner here quick so we know what we're talking about, right? So the efforts, you got the medal count. The U.S. fared pretty well. I mean, the Olympics came off pretty good. With all the challenges they had in Tokyo with the COVID spikes and no fans. And there was a few issues with some athletes who tested positive. The basketball team had some positive tests, which kind of hurt their efforts, at least early on. As you know, the U.S. Olympic basketball team got off to a tough start. They lost a couple games in exhibition, including games in Nigeria by, the teams that they beat by 80 or 90 points in the past. But again, this team was thrown together late because the season went really late. A lot of these guys were in the playoffs till, well into June and July in some cases. In fact, Drew Holiday and some others didn't join until quite late. Because of being in the NFL finals, the NBA finals. So they lost a couple exhibition games. They lost in the opening round of France and new Nick Fournier. Rudy Gobert played in that game on that team, and they were the eventual silver medalists as the U.S. avenged their loss in round one. The preliminary rounds to France. But they got off to a rough start. Again, losing those games. Guys were kind of openly rebellious of running Coach Greg Popovich's Spurs system, which I felt restrained them a little bit. And I'm not sure whether he kind of loosened the reins or they kind of took, bought into the system a little bit more. But it could have been just a matter of them playing more together. Again, they got together late. They didn't even start practicing until June. for Olympics that started, the end of July. Also missing some big stars. LeBron's not there. Steph Curry's not there. I'm sure there's some others that I could name, but they did have a really good roster of players. And Kevin Durant is the best player on the planet. The rest of the world has caught up with the U.S. Remember, take a look at the number of European players alone, guys in South America as well, Australian players. That's why these teams have caught up with us. A couple reasons. Well, I think the Dream Team in '92 kicked off this international wave and craze for basketball. So these foreign players wanted to start. Well, they wanted to get better. They wanted to play it with the best, and so a lot of them came to play in the NBA. So you've got players in Europe and other parts of the country, South America, as I mentioned, Australia always stand out in my mind, who come and play with the best. And those leagues have gotten better and better. American coaches go over there and coach. U.S. coaches. So the rest of the world has caught up with us in a lot of aspects. But this team was much maligned going into the Olympics and also as they got started on their Olympic journey. But Kevin Durant basically put this team on his back, in my mind. And again, I think they bought into Coach Popovich's system a little bit better. There was some griping early on about the way they were being asked to play, but it was a very, very, very good effort by the U.S. They got behind in nearly every game they played. In the preliminaries, well, maybe not against trying to think who they blew out, Iran or Iraq. I don't remember which one. But most of the games that they played, they fell behind. And, Kevin Durant basically, as I said, was playing all world. And if you don't think Kevin Durant is the best player on the planet when he's healthy, you're probably not paying attention. LeBron's gotten older. Durant's not a spring chicken, but he's playing the best basketball on the planet. And the Nets just re-upped him again. They extended his contract, which is probably a good idea for them. They're going to have some struggles. We'll talk about them maybe if we get to the NBA, but they're going to have some struggles this year. So anyway, congrats to the U.S. coming back, winning the Olympic gold. The women, by the way, won their Olympic gold as well for the 7th consecutive Olympics. Tremendous feat for them. Women's basketball in this country has exploded, and they've done a great job of capitalizing on that from a publicity standpoint and a fan interest standpoint. The WNBA is thriving here, and it's showing in the Olympics. So we send our professional players on the U.S. side and on the men's side. I'm sorry, on the U.S. side. On the U.S. side, both men's and women's, we send professional athletes to play. And it's easy to do because, for the most part, they're in the offseason. The men's team did get off to a slow start because of some of the guys that couldn't join early. As I said, Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday could not show up until after the games had started. So, again, congrats to Greg Popovich. Well deserved. Greg Popovich thought he was going to have this job a long time ago, and he made a comment one time about when he was passed over originally for Mike Krzyzewski that he didn't realize Krzyzewski was getting a lifetime appointment because he did coach the team for about 12 years. But Pop finally gets his chance, and he wins an Olympic gold after quite a bit of angst and him taking a beating in some quarters. The baseball team, the Olympic baseball team, coached by Mike Scioscia, former World Series champion and great catcher with World Series champion as a manager with the Angels and champion with the Dodgers as a player. Great catcher for the Dodgers in his day. This team was thrown together so we don't stop the NBA. I'm sorry. Boy, I'm having trouble this morning. Prevagen. Get your Prevagen and stay awake. There's Rick Sherlock in late this morning, but Hello, Rick. How are you? So the baseball team, again, remember the Japanese had their pro players there. The Koreans had their pro players there. We don't stop the season in Major League Baseball to get the professionals there. This team was made up of a hodgepodge of grizzled veterans who didn't have a major league job at this point in the season. Guys like former Yankee prospect Tyler Austin, Tim Federowicz, who plays in the Dodger organization, Todd Frazier, former Yankee and Met, Edwin Jackson, I don't know if he's played in the major leagues in 5 years, but pitched a no-hitter one time. Scott Kazmir hasn't played. He pitched a little bit with the Giants earlier this season, but I think it was the first time in 5 years he played any baseball. Or it's been 5 years since he played in the major leagues before that. He's back in the minors, I believe, now. Scott McGough. David Patterson, former Yankee pitcher, former Philly closer. And then you had a bunch of kids, minor league players. Most of these guys all had affiliations with minor league teams. There were a couple of guys that play in some of the foreign professional leagues. Tyler Austin, in fact, was playing in Japan. Tristan Casas was playing. Anthony Carter, was playing in the Mexican League. So we throw together this team, and they, similar to the basketball team, they lose to Japan in the preliminary rounds. And they fight and claw their way back, and they actually play Japan in the gold medal game. Play a game. They were game. They gamely played them and lost 2-0 to the Japanese team to get the silver medal. And I think, we all think that. As the U.S. citizens, we own baseball, which I kind of feel the same way. But Japan plays pretty good baseball, and when they're sending their pros and we're sending our amateurs, we're going to struggle. And baseball's not an every Olympic event. The host country is the country that decides what events. Many of the events, there's certain events that they get to decide whether they're there or not. Golf. I think tennis, baseball. Some are staples. Track and field, obviously, all of those are always there. Swimming's always there. Basketball's always there. But baseball is the one that's determined by the host country. And I forget where the Olympics are being played the next cycle, but that country is not going to have baseball. So it'll be 8 years for the U.S. gets a chance again. Maybe. I don't see them ever stopping the Major League Baseball season because of the length of it already. You can't shut down the league for 2 weeks to go play in the Olympics. So it's always going to be a struggle here. But again, I think a silver is fine. I think they equated themselves. Yes, thank you, Rick. China is the next Olympic venue for the Summer Olympics, and who knows what will happen there. There's a chance we don't even go. Who knows? I'm not saying that's an official thing or even a consideration at this point, but we all know the situation between the U.S. and China at the moment. It's not great. But I think a great job out of these kids from the U.S. Tremendous job. And some of the guys that, there's my Chewy order. You guys interested in my Chewy order? I had some more to talk about there, but I guess we'll let it be. Yeah, I guess we're done there. So anyway, great job out of Olympic. I think another great job out of the U.S. Olympic team, and well done to you guys. Let's move on to the NFL. I don't have Billy here to. By the way, guys, on our anniversary show, this is our anniversary show, kind of. Yesterday was the anniversary, as I mentioned, of our first show last year. It would have been my interview show. I started this Stream of Consciousness show a few months later. I started doing, cutting in quickly on Sundays, and it turned into this during football season. I've had a blast doing it. So Let's get to the NFL here. So anyway, if we do have a anniversary happy hour, as I think Rick Sherlock mentioned last week, the only rule I will have for that one is I'm not left alone with Billy Pulver, who's not here, and I don't know if Billy will be in. I think his daughter is visiting from England, from across the pond, and I don't think he'll be in today. So, but don't leave me with Billy Pulver the next time. Thank you. Kevin Porter is asking about his Chicago Bears. And I'll touch on this. This wasn't something I was going to bring up, but I do, Kevin, just so you know, and anybody you hopefully refer to this, I hope you'll share the show today, Kevin, and share Northeast Streaming Sports and TGI Sports Talk with your friends. I like to take your topics. You have questions, even if it's, as long as I'm on that segment, I guess, talking about that. Pro football, let's say. I encourage people to ask questions, so feel free, guys, as always. As long as we're kind of on the NFL, we'll talk about NFL off topic. So Kevin asked, what about the Bears? I'm not sold on the Bears. Kevin's in Dallas now and still a Bears fan. Good for you. I'll tell you what. I'll put up Rick's comment. Rick, just so you know, Kevin, Rick Sherlock is a big Packer fan, so you guys may have to duke it out later. I'm not really high on the Bears for a couple of reasons. I'm not a big fan of Nagy. And I'm a little surprised the Bears kept him and gave him the keys to another first-round quarterback pick. I think Mitchell Trubisky had a really good shot at being an NFL quarterback and still might at some point in his career. But he was not that far along in the development. They made some mistakes in moving up to draft him, obviously. But then Nagy, I think, kind of messed him up in his head. He was making some good progress, and he just kind of went backwards. Oh, Jesus, Rick. Oh, sorry, Rick. Rick's a Viking fan. I don't know how I said Packers. He's probably driving to my house now to beat the Jesus out of me. Thank you, Kevin. I'm sure you're referring to the fact that you shared the show and the pages. I appreciate that so much. So anyway, back to the Bears. I like Justin Fields. If he stays healthy, I think they've got a good quarterback for the future. My problem is the guy they left the keys with. Not a Nagy fan. I think they should have cut ties with him last year. So I think that division is going to be very, very close, I think. I mean, look at 18 games this year. 10 games might win that division. Because I don't see the Packers running away. I don't see the Vikings running away. Vikings might be the best team in the division. Not to kiss up to Rick Sherlock. The Vikings might be the best team in that division. The Packers are going to have issues, I think, as I mentioned last week, with Aaron Rodgers coming back and now the locker room being divided. I think there's going to be some major issues there in Packerland. The Lions are going to be awful. I think really bad. And the Bears are kind of to me, they can go either way. I believe Nagy's committed to Dalton, at least at this point, to start the season. And then we'll see what happens. I hope that he does not mess up Justin Fields the way I feel he messed up Trubisky. Yeah. They had Nagy is, again, does he want to be Mike Ditka? Mike Ditka was a great coach. Coached in a way a lot of coaches, you couldn't coach that way today. I'm not saying that's right either, but you just can't coach that way anymore. Not in the NFL. You hurt guys' feelings. I mean, gosh, we got to hand guys a tissue every 5 minutes. So, again, I think the Bears will be kind of on a fence. I can see them. I seriously, Kevin, I could see him being, 7-10. I'm sorry, 7-11. Got to get these numbers. No, 7-10 would be right. I can also see him being 10-7. Comes down to coaching. Yeah, everybody's sensitive. That's the problem in sports today and the world. Well, there's a lot of, you know what? I don't disagree with that comment. Reckon, Kevin, you can weigh in if you want. Didn't know I was going to spend this much time on the Bears this morning, but I'm happy to. There's always been debate whether Buddy Ryan or Mike Ditka deserves credit for those, the 85 Bears Super Bowl winners over my New England Patriots. We won't talk anymore about that. Or Mike Ditka. But look at Mike Ditka took over a team that was in disarray, instilled discipline in it. And you can't take away the credit from the head coach just because one of your coordinators develops a great defense. Was Bill Belichick the reason that the Giants were a great team in the 90s and won 2 Super Bowls? Or we have to take total credit away from Bill Parcells? Buddy Ryan's a great coach, great defensive coordinator. Didn't do so great in Houston, but that's a different story. They ran a totally different thing, and you can remember the fight on the sideline maybe on Monday Night Football between Kevin Gilbride and Buddy Ryan because Buddy wasn't happy with this whole run and shoot offense that kept his defense on the field for 3 quarters of the game. Anyway, I digress. You got my opinion on the Bears. Let's talk about a couple things. I want to talk about a couple of pieces of news real quick before we jump into the Hall of Fame inductees. I touched on it last week quickly, but I didn't do it justice. And I want to kind of review both classes because there are 2 classes being inducted this year, 2020 and 2021. A couple things. Josh Allen gets a big extension. And I think that's fine. Again, I have a problem with guys who demand an extension, like TJ Watt for the Pittsburgh, who's now demanding an extension and is not going to practice until he gets it. And a big difference between that and the team trying to extend their great player, in this case, their quarterback. And I think Josh Allen is one of the better quarterbacks in football. He's got his flaws. He's not, Joe Montana, but he's still getting better. The thing that impressed me about Josh Allen, he was such a raw talent when he came in. He's gotten better every single season, and so has the team. And I think this is a great move for the Bills. And there's also an out for him to renegotiate this. So I'm okay with renegotiating as long as it's written into your contract that you can do it after a certain amount of time. So big news for Bills fans there. Good. Congratulations, Dave Guyette, and extending your quarterback. Kyle Shanahan says that Trey Lance will see the field this year, but will not likely start the season. That'll be Jimmy G. And interestingly, and I don't know about, I really don't know where I come down on. Sorry, Mickey came in late. It is Kevin Porter. It all could depend on how he put his name in to be shown on the show. I don't know, but it is Kevin. I made a mistake myself. So the Washington football team, formerly known as the Redskins, we know they dropped their name, and we know that they're still working on a new name. They're still the football team. But now fans, and because last year they were still wearing all their headdresses and coming in war paint. And the team has said you can't do that. So, it's a sensitive subject, and I don't know where I stand. The problem with it is, the problem I have is the history of the team is so wrapped up. A lot of teams is so wrapped up there, and their identity is wrapped up in their team name, let's say. And the fans buy all kinds of gear and such, thousands of dollars. Speaking from experience as a Patriot fan, I know if they changed their name tomorrow, I'd have, thousands of dollars worth of wearables that I can't wear anymore, theoretically. So are they supposed to stop identifying with the way they've rooted for this team for decades? Well, they're going to have to because they can't come in their headdresses. And I don't know if they're going to ban Redskins paraphernalia. I don't know how you can really do that. And again, when it comes to teams changing their names, and this has been going on for quite a while now, a couple decades. We've talked about it with my high school brethren from Perth. We were the Red Raiders back in the day, and they changed the name, 30 years ago. So this has been an evolving topic for years. And, I get it. Redskins need to change the name. It's not. It's not a flattering depiction of Native Americans. I get that. But Indians, don't know. Chief Wahoo probably should go away, but I don't know that you can't say Indians. Braves, they're going to say people can't do the tomahawk chop. And the Braves, I don't think is a derogatory name. So I got some issues with some of that. And it just causes such a slippery slope. Again, and the Indians did a horrible job, by the way, picking a new name, the Guardians. I mean, good grief. Now, and I saw something, and I don't know if this is serious or just a joke, that they want to rename the stadium. I think it's Progressive Field now. I'm not positive. But they want to rename the field Galaxy Field, so that they can be the guardians of the galaxy. No copyright infringements there. I'm sorry, you're a Pats fan. Oh, Mickey. I'm not sorry. I've been a Pats fan a long time, and there's a lot of fair weather fans out there, guys. There really are. Lots of them. But not me. I've been doing this since I was 10 years old. And I have lots of Pat Patriot gear still that what fits me I wear. And I buy stuff with Pat Patriot because I still like that better than the Flying Elvis. But I'm not a fair weather fan. Unless you're less than 30 years old, and you became a Patriot fan in 2000, then you're a bandwagon jumper. Okay. What else we got for news? Jimmy Johnson. Let me just talk about, let's jump into the Hall of Fame inductees, if we can. We're going to start with the class of 20. The class that didn't get recognized last year. We'll start with the coaches. Bill Cowher. 9 years of eligibility, coached 15 seasons with the Steelers. Made it to a Super Bowl, made it to 2 Super Bowls, won 1. Well, look at that. There's Bill Pulver. 50th class reunion last night for Billy. He's a little cobwebby. Just a biplane for Pulverizer. Oh, gosh. Anyway, Hall of Fame. Bill Cowher, great coach. Always been rumors about him coming back. They still creep up. He's been out of the game now since 2006. 15 years. Very few people come back after that period of time, but his name still comes up almost every year when there's openings. Joe Gibbs is the one guy I can think of that came back after a really extended first retirement. So congrats to Bill Cowher. But Jimmy Johnson, great coach with the Dallas Cowboys, turned them from he started off. He tore the franchise down, made a great trade in the Herschel Walker trade, and built that team from a 1-win team to a Super Bowl team in 4 years. Back-to-back Super Bowl winners. Also coached with the Miami Dolphins for 3 seasons. Coached a total of 9 seasons. Was a college teammate of Jerry Jones. And Jerry Jones and Jimmy Johnson very famously had a falling out after that second Super Bowl win against the Bills, consecutive Super Bowl win. And Jimmy Johnson left. Awful move. Awful move. The Cowboys could have won more. They did win. They won one 2 years later with Barry Switzer, but Barry Switzer was basically a caretaker on that team. You listen to guys like Troy Aikman, they'll tell you that Switzer wasn't really coaching the team. Rick's curious about the difference for him. Someone hacked my Facebook page, so I decided to change it to Porter Kevin. There's a very good point, Kevin. Be careful out there, guys. Lots of Facebook hacking going on. I get friend requests from so many people that I know it's not them because they've already got an account. Why would they be setting up a second one unless they've told me they got hacked and you can accept my new invitation? Anyway, Jimmy Johnson, great coach. Jimmy Johnson chased out of town by Jerry Jones, basically. And Jimmy Jones never been honored in the Cowboys Ring of Honor. I believe that is going to be rectified, if not this coming season, then the next. And Jerry Jones needs to hire somebody to actually run the football part of that team. Moving on, contributors from 2020 in the contributor category. Steve Sable from NFL Films. His father, Ed, founded this team, this company, NFL Films, in 1964. They were filming with 8mm film. And NFL Films has put together some of the best stuff in the history of the NFL. The NFL owes a lot of their where they are today as far as popularity and such to NFL Films. They tweaked, they worked on this, and they didn't really hit the right formula to the mid to late 60s, where they added orchestra music. They found the late great John Facenda to do the narration on a lot of their films. And the NFL owes a lot to Steve, who started out as a cameraman working for his dad and ended up running the whole company. And he just was a tremendous contributor to the NFL. And unfortunately, he gets this posthumously as he passed away in 2012. I didn't realize he was 69 years old when he died. I thought he was much, much younger. Anyway, great contributor. Paul Tagliabue. Let me stop here for a second as we're talking about. I see a Cowboy comment. These Cowboy fans are crazy down there where Kevin now lives. He's a Chicago fan living in Dallas. He stands his ground as a Bears fan. Dallas is not America's team. Well, you know what? You can thank NFL Films probably for that tag in a lot of ways. And again, I think, when you talk about America's team, I think it's because there's, again, two reasons. They're so, I don't know, the word is not coming to my mind. You either hate the Cowboys or you love the Cowboys. And there's Cowboy fans everywhere. Yes, there's Pittsburgh Steelers fans. There's Chicago Bears fans everywhere. There's Green Bay Packer fans everywhere. You got Vikings fans here, but they aren't really as widespread as, say, the Cowboys or the Packers or the Steelers. Even the Patriots don't. I wouldn't, they aren't beloved across the country, or they're hated across the country. But Cowboy fans, there's real fans everywhere. And I'm talking about widespread and also volume, right? So, yes, the Vikings have fans here in New York. Rick Sherlock. Mike Villa, former mayor of Amsterdam, I know is a huge Packer. Or, boy, I did it again. You guys are going to come and beat the crap out of me. Huge Vikings fan. Where was that, Rick? That's a story that got by me. You could bring that up while I continue. Paul Tagliabue, former commissioner. From 89 to 2006. Before that, he was the general counsel, I believe, for the NFL and Pete Rozelle. And look at the NFL grew to enormous heights under Tagliabue, and he is really kind of vilified in a lot of ways by some people. But Pete Rozelle left him a strong foundation, obviously, but it was really Paul Tagliabue who started the real expansion, expanding the network coverage and including more networks and days of the week and getting more money. Training camp scrimmage. I don't think I'd mess with I don't think I'd mess with Aaron Donald. But again, those happen. Those training camp things happen, right? So anyway, Paul Tagliabue, well-deserved honor. You know, these commissioners, I'm not a Goodell fan. I think Goodell has taken what Paul Tagliabue gave him and has kind of watered the product down with a lot of the new rules and such. And I understand why some of them are there, but again, similar to baseball, giving all the advantage to the offensive teams, we're getting the same thing in football where defensive players can barely even, compete out there sometimes because of some of the rule changes. All right, moving on to the contributors portion of the 2020 Hall of Fame inductees, which is just half of this year's inductees because we have 2021. George Young. George Young was an integral part of several front offices of successful football teams, starting with the Baltimore Colts, who were very, very good in the late 60s, even the early 70s. Got to and won a Super Bowl in the 70s with George Young kind of at the helm. Moved to the Miami Dolphins, who were already successful, but he continued that success through the mid-70s. And he moved to the Giants in 1979, and it really signaled the rebirth of the Giants. The Giants, were an NFL power in the 50s and 60s, early 60s, and had fallen on really hard times for 30 plus years. Well, not 30 plus years. What am I talking about? 20 plus years. Oh, God, I still can't do math. 15 plus years. Perth graduate. Oh, math skills. Anyway, does a great job. They had infighting, amongst the owners, the Maras and the Tishes. And he came in and he was a mediator, and he was a guy who made the decisions. And he first brought in Ray Perkins, who did a great job of getting that team headed in the right direction. He left to take over as coach of Alabama, replacing the great Bear Bryant. Tough job in itself. But he did a great job turning around the Giants, and then he has probably the best hire he could have made, even though I have my own personal issues with Coach Parcells. He hired Bill Parcells to replace Ray Perkins, and after a rough start, almost getting fired his first year, Parcells, as we know, turned that team into a mini dynasty. They were very competitive throughout the mid to late 80s and 90s, winning 2 Super Bowls, having many other Super Bowl contending teams, and just a great job by George Young hiring him. And then he went to work for the NFL when he retired from the Giants in 1998. Great job, well-deserved. Players, Harold Carmichael, great player, great wide receiver with some bad Eagles teams. He did make it until Vic Vermeil came in and turned that team around, but he was a key member of the teams that really got good. But he played on some really bad teams in the early 70s before this team turned it around. So congratulations to Harold Carmichael. Jim Covert, great. Kevin, a great offensive tackle for the Chicago Bears, including that 1985 World Super Bowl champion, just killing the New England Patriots 46-10. I'll mention it one more time. Good grief. He did a tremendous job throughout his career. He played from 83 to 90, did a tremendous job paving the way for Walter Payton and pass blocking for Jim McMahon. Great player. Good morning, Carlos. Good to see you. backing up a little bit to George Young, and when I talk about the Giants, the 49ers teams did keep the Giants from dynasties, because the 49ers were not winning back-to-back Super Bowls hardly at all, but they were winning 4. And they would, have some good teams and fall backwards a little bit. But good point there that without the 49ers, the Giants may have won, who knows? They could have won 6 Super Bowls. They could have been the Patriots of the 80s and 90s. Kevin mentions, yes, he was Mr. Covert. Great player, well-deserved honor. Bobby Dillon, who I admit I don't know a lot about. The fact that he's played his NFL career in the 50s with the Green Bay Packers probably won't make Rick Sherlock clap for him, but he was a safety on those Green Bay Packers teams, and probably not very good teams. That team didn't get good until the late 50s and the early 60s when Vince Lombardi gets there. So he played and was probably a bit overlooked during his career with the Green Bay Packers, but congratulations. Staying with the safeties, Cliff Harris from the Dallas Cowboys. 9-year career. Played on some great Cowboy teams. Constantly battling the Steelers in the Super Bowl in the 70s. And Cliff Harris was a big part of that doomsday defense. They had a great secondary. They had a great defense overall. That's a good team, right? Cowboys dominated the 70s in the NFC, along with the Vikings. Give you that tip of the cap there, Rick. The difference was the Cowboys got to and won some Super Bowls, and the Vikings, unfortunately, didn't win any. But not to take it away. Good, getting to as many Super Bowls as the Vikings got to in a 10-year span, I think it was 4, if I'm not mistaken. Rick, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is a pretty significant accomplishment. It's similar, even better with their Bills in the 90s, get to 4 straight. They're not bad teams because they lost 4 straight Super Bowls. It takes something to get to 4 straight Super Bowls. It takes something to get to 4 Super Bowls in 10 years. But again, to be considered a more elite, you need to win. Sorry about that, guys. I was saying the Vikings, Cowboys, and even the Rams a little bit dominated the NFC in the 70s. Cowboys, though, were the ultimate winners. Winston Hill, great offensive tackle for the Jets. Played a long time. Played 13 years with the Jets and played a year with the Rams. I think the same year Joe Namath went out to the Rams with bad results, horrible results, obviously. I think Winston Hill went out there as well. Only played 1 season, but he did play a total of 15 seasons and was a great offensive lineman. This is a well-deserved and long overdue honor. Played on that great Jet Super Bowl team in 1969. Alex Karras, overlooked as a great defensive tackle. Again, NFC, the old NFC Central. Alex Karras, well represented here. Alex Karras was a great player with the Lions. Rarely were the Lions that competitive, but he stood out and later had a great career first as an analyst on Monday Night Football and did some acting. We certainly remember him as Mongo in Blazing Saddles, perhaps my favorite movie of all time. But just a tremendous player and part of the NFL's all-decade team in the 70s. And you probably remember him in Mr. Belvedere, of course. No, not Mr. Was it Mr. Belvedere? No, Webster. Sorry, Webster. Favorite inductee was Packer Jerry Kramer. Waited his turn in great speech. Same class of I agree. Jerry Kramer gave a great speech that year, Rick. Good. That's a great call. I actually may get. I've been talking to his son a little bit, and I'm hoping to get him on the show to talk about his dad a little bit. Yeah, I don't think they'll be behind the Eagles, Mickey, just an FYI. The Eagles will finish at the bottom of the NFC East, and we'll be talking more about that as we go along. Got to move along. Donnie Shell, another safety, this time with the Steelers. Those Steeler teams that faced off against Cliff Harris's Cowboys constantly during the 70s, played 14 seasons. Great player. Duke Slater, another offensive tackle. Played a long time ago, guys. Played with the Badgers, the Milwaukee Badgers, the Rock Island Independents, and the Chicago Cardinals, who later moved to St. Louis, as we know. Played 10 seasons and gets his due. Max Speedy played it with the Cleveland Browns and first the AAFC, which is the precursor to the NFL, but all of it with the Cleveland Browns for the great Paul Brown. And he played 7 seasons. He was an end and gets his due. And Ed Sprinkle, who played with the Chicago Bears again, Kevin. He was a defensive end linebacker, played a little bit of offensive end as well, played 12 seasons with the Packers, and he gets his due. So congratulations to the class of 2020. Sure about Kevin's comment there. Maybe about Jared Kramer. Not sure. Anyway, let's move on to the class of 2021, which I touched on a little bit last week, but I didn't do them justice. So let's talk about it here. Alan Facina. Can't say it. Faneca. Boy, good grief. Faneca. Longtime guard with the Pittsburgh Steelers in 98, from 98 to 2007, played with the Jets and a little bit with the Cardinals. 13 seasons, great player. Again, played on a championship Steeler team. Played a lot for Bill Cowher, who was inducted last year. One of the most underrated coaches, and I think I mentioned this last week, Tom Flores, coached the Raiders and the Seahawks, coached the Raiders from 79 to 87 and the Seahawks for a couple of seasons with not that great success in Seattle, but at that time, nobody was having great success there. But he coached the Oakland/LA Raiders to 2 Super Bowl championships. John Madden, who's revered throughout the league and the country, won 1. And again, with some great teams, probably better teams, I think, talent-wise, than Tom Flores won with during his time. Now, he did have the great Marcus Allen, but he won with Jim Plunkett twice at quarterback. Not to knock Jim Plunkett, but his career, other than a couple of seasons, isn't that good. Calvin Johnson only played 9 seasons with the Lions. Very little success overall as a team in that period of time, and I'm sure it takes its toll. But he was a great, great player, and it's a shame he didn't get to play on better teams more often. But a great, great wide receiver and a dominant player at his position during that time. John Lynch, great safety out of Stanford, played with the Bucks and the Denver Broncos. And now he's a integral part of the front office with the 49ers. Let's back up. Carlos has a comment that I missed. Flores won 4 Super Bowls. Well, he won 2. He may have won. I'm not sure where the other 2 come from, Carlos, but let me just double check my math here to make sure I'm not wrong. But I do not remember him winning 4 Super Bowls. He won 2. Let's see. Well, he was an assistant coach with the team that won a Super Bowl in 76. But he won 2. He beat the Eagles and he beat the Redskins. Mark Robertshaw, welcome this morning, Mark. Megatron. Yes, that's Yeah, still, I only come up with 3, but you're right. He did win more than 2. If you got 4, and you can show them to me, Carlos, I'll be happy to retract my statement. The great Peyton Manning, who, you know what, I've had my issues with as a player. He's turned out to be a tremendous persona, which he didn't show when he was a player. Some of his commercials with Brad Paisley are just awesome. His affiliation with one of the pizza companies obviously is awesome. Some fun commercials, but he was a great player. Won 1 Super Bowl. My problems with Peyton were the people, when he was playing, trying to tell me how much better he was than my favorite. He won as a player. All right. Then I am wrong about Tom Flores. I don't remember him winning as a player, though, because I thought he was with the Raiders during his player career. I don't have his playing numbers in front of me. I've only got his coaching stats. But I thought he was a backup quarterback for the Raiders. I could be wrong about that, and I know they got to a Super Bowl, but I did not think they won. Carlos, you are catching me, though. Maybe you can elaborate on that for me and help me out. So Peyton Manning, yes, well-deserved. Great quarterback, one of the best quarterbacks of all time. Held almost all the passing records at one point in his career. My issue was, again, an ongoing debate with some friends of mine, how Peyton Manning was such a better quarterback than Tom Brady. And not sure how you say that. And they'll say, well, Peyton didn't play with the great players. I think we're going to see another guy in here that's a Hall of Famer, Edgerrin James he played with. He played with somebody who may be in a Hall of Fame one day, and Marvin Harrison. So please don't tell me that he played with crappy players. Played with great players. I'm even leaving some guys out. I named just 2. Assistant. I get the assistant. I get the coach. I can't find the player. I'll take your word for it, though, Carlos. If you have it, I'd love to know, because I like to know these things. Bill Nunn, senior scout, well deserved. We talked about this last week. Bill Nunn, long overlooked for Hall of Fame honors, as he was one of the, he was in part of the player personnel department that put these great Steeler teams together in the 70s. This was an organization that had been nowhere for decades. And guys like Bill Nunn were responsible for finding some great players in drafts, and from small schools, guys like John Stallworth from Alabama A&M, Terry Bradshaw, Louisiana Tech, Mel Blount, Southern University, Donnie Shell, I think, from South Carolina State, Jack Lambert at Kent State, amongst all these other great players. I mean, you look at some of those drafts from the early 70s, and they're just loaded with Hall of Famers. Great job. Drew Pearson, who I know Rick Sherlock has an issue with for a push-off in a playoff game, I think in 1974, if I have that year right. I'm not sure. But a great wide receiver with the Dallas Cowboys. Again, his numbers don't match up with some guys who play the game today because of the way the game was played then. But he was one of the best receivers in all of football, and a clutch performer at that. He was undrafted free agent when the Cowboys found him. I think he played quarterback at Tulsa, if I'm not mistaken, in college. But a great honor. Been trying to get Drew Pearson on my show. I had a connection through Byron Williams, who has got a new show starting, by the way, with on the Northeast Streaming Sports Network. Going to air exclusively on YouTube. So you guys who aren't part of our YouTube network, go to YouTube and subscribe. It's free to subscribe for now to Northeast Streaming Sports and TGI Sports Talk. I have pages. I contribute to both pages. But this show, he'll be doing with an ex-Cowboy of note. I don't want to give away the secret, but it's going to be debuting very shortly on YouTube. It'll be part of the Northeast Streaming Sports Network. Charles Woodson, great player, two-way player in college, won a Heisman Trophy, played with the Raiders and the Green Bay Packers. A lot of Packers. Sorry, Rick. But just a tremendous player. He was a rookie of the year and played in many Pro Bowls, returned punts. Just a great, great player, and well-deserved honor there as well. And that's it for our Hall of Fame inductees and the NFL. You guys got anything else you want to chat about quickly? And I want to move on to. I got a couple quick notes about college football, and then I'm going to move on to baseball. Because at 10:25, I've got Mark Mancini coming out. We're going to talk about the National League races and some of the postseason awards, and I want to get through the American League before that. So, Carlos, find me that team that he played for when he won. Maybe it was the Bills, but it wouldn't have been a Super Bowl. Now, he could have been a champion, I guess, in the AFL as a player. That's possible. Maybe that's what you're going for there, Carlos. I'm not sure. Super Bowl, I don't think so. Now, again, that's not the, football championships didn't start with the, there we go. The Chiefs, now I remember. Sorry. Hang on. Now I remember, yes, he was a backup quarterback with the Chiefs, so they were the AFL champion. Oh, was he a backup with the Chiefs on Super Bowl 5 or 4? Oh, excellent call, Carlos. That is an awesome get by you. And I owe you an apology. So great job there, Carlos. Let's move on real quick. I'm going to talk about the NCAA, and I'm going to move on to baseball. If you guys got comments here, I can certainly do baseball. I'm going to cover the American League, and we're going to talk to Mark Mancini about the National League when he comes on. College football. Quick reminder. Starting this Wednesday, the 11th of August, 7 p.m. Eastern time, we'll be doing weekly TGI Sports Talks College Football Huddle. We'll be covering all the stuff on college football. We'll still talk about it on Sundays. I probably won't spend as much time on it as I did last year during the college football season. We'll still spend a decent amount of time on it, but we're going to talk everything college football. I'm going to have some contributors come on. I've got Larry Sorensen, who's actually the color man for the Wake Forest Demon Deacons in the ACC. He's going to come on from time to time to talk about ACC football and some of the other news around the NCAA. And we're going to try to build off of that and have more contributors as well. But I'm going to talk about all the big stories. I've got to talk about realignment, which is getting to be a deeper and deeper subject, right? We already know about Texas and Oklahoma moving to the SEC in 2025. May happen sooner, depending on TV contracts and how they can be reorganized and whatnot. Along with that, you may see more shuffling, because you remember in 2012 when we had realignment, it was just it was just a domino effect. Texas A&M goes to Southeast Conference. Arkansas goes to the Southeast Conference. Nebraska goes to the Big Ten. The Big 12 has to take Texas and Texas Tech and Texas. TCU out of the old Southwest Conference. And I think the same thing's going to happen here. The Big 12's got to do something. Big 12 may lose teams to the AAC. I know they're talking to West Virginia. TCU would be a perfect fit for the AAC. I love that football conference, by the way. As you guys know, if you watch my Sunday shows during football season, you know that I am a big fan of the American Athletic Conference and what they are accomplishing over there. He was very, very good. Did Bobby Bowden pass away? I didn't know that, but yes, rest in peace, Bobby Bowden. Tremendous, tremendous football coach. Glad you brought that up, Rick. I did not see that. It must have happened this morning, or even since I looked this morning. All right, Billy Pulver, have a great day. You're going to the lakes. How many lakes are you going to? Billy probably owns his own lake these days. All right, back to college football so we can move on. The realignment, again, it's a mess. ESPN, the Big 12's considering lawsuits against ESPN for manipulating and kind of colluding with some of these teams to move to conferences, both to the SEC, which are going to, if you don't know, ESPN is now going to have exclusive rights to the SEC coming up in 2025, I think. CBS will lose them. And also to the AAC. So the network shouldn't be driving these decisions, by the way. Yeah, I'm going to put up Carlos's because this is something I'll talk about more on this show and on my college football show on Thursdays. The realignment does mess up. College football is a regional sport. And I understand the NCAA wanting it to be, more top of mind nationwide, which it is with the playoff and the bowl games and such. But it's still regional rivalries. It messes up those regional rivalries. It messes up both interconference rivalries and non-conference rivalries. Miami can't play Florida and Florida State every year anymore. They play Florida State because they play in the same league, but they used to play Florida every year. There'd be a round robin. All three of those teams would play each other all the time. Doesn't happen. Let me get back to the right banner here. So, more to come. Lots of news. This is going to affect Notre Dame. There's lots to happen yet. And we got the whole NIL thing we'll talk about more in depth on Wednesdays. Again, I'm still on the fence. I don't like to see guys. I think kids, look at the NCAA has been making billions of dollars off these kids' backs for years, and a lot of them aren't going to make money on the next level. And if they can make it here, part of me says okay. But part of me knows how that will be bastardized into recruiting violations because the NCAA says you cannot use it as a recruiting tool, but it'll happen. And now you got Ohio State's got a kid sitting out his senior year in high school and getting $1 million endorsement before he's ever stepped on a field at Ohio State. I just feel like it's a slippery slope. Some other things we'll talk about too. The NCAA is rethinking their overall role in governing the sport, all sports, and decentralizing the regulation, which, look at the NCAA in a lot of cases done a horrible job. But I'm not sure decentralizing is the best idea and letting these conferences all fend for themselves. I don't know. We'll dive deeper into that topic as well as many other topics, guys. I've got, there's lots to talk about. This week, we're going to look at the preseason top 25. We'll talk about these topics I've just talked about and much, much more. Let's move on. The NBA is going to take a back seat today, guys. So I know some of you aren't huge NCAA people anyway, but I want to jump in quickly. And I'm going to cover the American League division races right now, and then we'll kind of move on to the National League once Mark Mancini comes on at 10:25 or so. He's probably going to call in today, and Mark's going to become a regular contributor to the show, so he's going to get himself on video, hopefully after this week. Let's look at the American League races because, again, we're going to concentrate on the National League when Mark comes on as well. Check comments before I move on. University AD's going nuts. Good read. Boston's hitting a wall. I'm going to start there, Carlos. The American League East is all of a sudden taking on a different shape. The Rays are now a full 3 games ahead of the Red Sox. Red Sox have gone just 2-8 in their last 10. And they're starting to show the holes that I thought they were there all along, but they've been one of the big surprises in baseball up till now. They may still right the ship. They're going to get Chris Sale back at some point, and we'll see what that ends up being for the Red Sox. But the Yankees, who I'm down on. I'm a big Yankee fan, but there's no bigger Yankee fan than me. And I've been very down on this team, very down on Mark Cash or Brian Cashman. Very down on Aaron Boone. Well, the Yankees have won 5 in a row. The Yankees are 8-2 in their last 10. And they're suddenly I said that they'd be lucky to be fighting for the last wild card, the second wild card with Oakland and Seattle. They got a shot at getting the best wild card, and they might even have a shot at the division now. They're only 5.5 back. They're only 2.5 back of the Red Sox. And suddenly they're playing better. I still think the Yankee issues are there. They're not going away. You look at some of the guys that have pitched for them the last week, you see the problems on the pitching staff. COVID has run rampant through the organization. They still got Torrey's issues at shortstop defensively. You got the issues with Sanchez at second. But they improved their outfield defense with Gallo. They improved their first base defense and their infield defense overall with Rizzo. Rizzo's a leader. You can see the difference on this infield with him there. Now, I do understand these wins, a lot of these wins, at least the beginning of the streak, came a lot against the Marlins and the Orioles. Well, they had beat the Rays at the beginning of this hot streak. They beat the Mariners now 3 in a row, coming from behind every game. I said Yankees got guns and those bullets are going to run dry with the Red Sox. Yes. Again, I've been tough on the Yankees. I'm still not confident they get to the playoff time. This team's got holes. Joey Gallo can be pitched to. You got to make all the plays on defense. You can't give away outs. Torrey's. Yeah, we touched on this a few seconds ago. So rest in peace, Bobby Bowden. Great career. Sad. Apparently, Mickey wants to talk anything about his Mariners weekend. 50 games to go. 51. 52 for the Yankees. 51 for the. It depends on who you are. COVID has caused some problems as far as games being, some teams being ahead of other teams. Games played wise, the Red Sox have played up 133. I'm sorry, 113, and the Yankees have only played 110, for instance. So, Yankees 1 game back, by the way, 1 game back in the loss column, which is huge. So again, things are kind of getting turned upside down. Not upside down. We thought all along this would be a 4-team race. I said early in the year, but the Yankees had their flaws come playoff time. And then I started to amend that and thought they were going to struggle just to get to the playoffs. Well, maybe not. You can't discount the leadership qualities of a guy like Rizzo as well. Rizzo's hit the ball tremendously. We already know that. I think he hit home runs in his first 3 games. But it's the leadership and it's the defensive qualities. MVP this season? I don't know which thing you're talking about. Rizzo? Don't know about that. Maybe somebody else. Not sure who we might have been talking about when you brought that up. But we're going to talk about the MVP races in a little bit. I don't think we'll get to the American League today, but we might, depending on when Mark comes in. But we're going to talk about the National League contenders most likely for some of those awards today with Mark. Maybe the American League if we have some time. Carlos, you can comment on who you think who you're referring to there, or maybe you're just asking right now. If you're asking me now, there's a lot of contenders. I mean, if it depends. If you think the guy's got to be from a winner, Ohtani's going to be up there. Or I'm sorry, if he doesn't need to be from a winner, Ohtani's going to be up there. Vlad Guerrero, who, by the way, let's not forget the Red Sox. Or I'm sorry, the Jays are playing good. They're 8-10 in their last 10 games. 8-2. I'm sorry, 8-2 in their last 10 games. So let's not forget that. Lost my standings page. Bear with me a second here, guys. So I'll be honest with you. If I'm voting today for an MVP, even though he's slowed down a little bit the last few weeks, it's Vlad Guerrero. He's still got a shot, an outside shot at the Triple Crown. He's not as in good a shape as he was here a few weeks back. But he's been the best player in the American League in my mind. Now, if he's got to play for a winner, and a lot of people do espouse to that theory, well, now I start thinking about Bogarts, and I start thinking about Abreu from the White Sox. And, you got to consider Altuve from the Astros. Just the Astros are a great story. We'll get there in a second. Let me finish up the East here. The Jays have gotten hot. They're 7 back in the in the division and only 4 back in the wild card. So they're playing much better ball. The 4 better, the Yankees and Mariners are never been a year good. Well, Mariners are a year away. I've been saying the Mariners are a year away, but they keep, every time they stumble, they come back and get better and play better. So they've had these streaks before. They've been a very streaky team this year. A lot of controversy in them trading away their closer as they're in contention. But they did it. Let me move on to the Central before Mark Mancini comes in here. We'll finish up the American League. Central, the White Sox are 10 and a half games clear now of the Indians. Team formerly known as the Indians. They're still listed as the Indians in my standings, and that's another topic which we touched on earlier. The Indians are likely done, 2 games under 500. No team's going to make a wild card run from that division. The White Sox are going to win this easily and are going to be very tough in the playoffs. I mean, you got Lance Lynn, who's going to be a contender for the Cy Young. You got Hendricks, who's going to be a contender for the Cy Young, likely in the bullpen. And you've also got Kimbrel. So, and they've got guys coming back from injuries for the White Sox. You got Jimenez already back. Look quick here. Jimenez is already back playing. At the H, he's playing right now. And you've also got, I can't think of the guy I'm thinking of that's also been out. Let me look at their injuries here. Luis Roberts. He will come back and play. He might be playing this weekend. I don't know if he's played yet, but that's an important cog in their offense as well and their defense. So I think this team is well loaded to do well in the playoffs. We'll see. Plus, they got Tony La Russa, one of the great minds in baseball history, and a great postseason manager, I think, outside of maybe the A's in the 80s where they should have won maybe 3 championships and they won 1. And the Twins are just a huge disappointment to me. I mean, 18 games back now. It's just awful. So, the West. I talked about the Astros. You guys can hate on the Astros all you want. Again, I don't think that the cheating, the sign-stealing scandal, I won't say cheating. The sign-stealing scandal was as big a deal as a lot of other people think. They're hitting better this year than they hit when they knew the signs. They're 3 games ahead of the Athletics, who are still, again, doing it with smoke and mirrors. But their run differential is 151. And they play some good situational baseball where some other teams don't. They made their bullpen much, much better with the trade with the Mariners. Carlos Correa is having a great comeback season. He could be an MVP candidate, depending on what happens over these last 50 games. And the A's are right there, battling still for the division and holding on to that last wild card situation now. The Mariners, as we said, have fallen back 3-7 in their last 10. They're now 5.5 games behind the A's for that second wild card spot, and they're 8.5 out of the division lead now. So, going to be very tough for them to come back. We're going to jump into the National League with Mark Mancini a little bit. I'll take your guys' comments on the rest of the American League notes. As far as potential postseason awards in the American League, we talked about the MVP, I still think Vlad Guerrero may be the leader in the clubhouse. Not in the clubhouse, they haven't finished playing, but the leader at this point. But Bogarts, Correa, Devers from the Red Sox, maybe even Marcus Semien for the Blue Jays. It all depends maybe on how these guys do these last 50 games and how their teams do. If the Jays get themselves back into this race, well, then Vlad Guerrero and Semien have a much better case for the MVP. The AL Cy Young, Kyle Gibson would have been a contender, but he's now pitching in Philadelphia. Lance Lynn has had a great year. His ERA still, I think, under 2. Been very, very, very good for the White Sox. Lance Lynn's been a great, consistent pitcher for every team he's pitched for, as I said, except the Yankees when he got traded to the Yankees in midseason a number of years back. And Carlos Rendon will probably still be in contention, depending on what happens, again, the remainder of the season. Garrett Cole would have been a huge contender if now he's been out for 10 games with the COVID situation. That's going to hurt him a little bit. But again, a big kick by him, he's going to put himself right in position as well. What else? How about AL Rookie of the Year? Probably Adonis Garcia is probably the leader, and probably by a lot. Luis Garcia with the Astros will get some love in this regard. Cole Irvin for the A's will get some love. Casey Mize, who really had a tough start to the season, but has gotten it together and been a great contributor to a team who, by the way, I should have mentioned them earlier on. The Tigers, only 5 games under 500 now, off to a horrible start, and I thought they were going to be a dumpster fire this year. But they've been one of the better teams the last couple of months. Great job by A.J. Hinch. Not going to contend this year, but they're building something there in Detroit. The Manager of the Year in the American League, and we'll see. Right, 2 weeks ago it would have been Alex Cora. Most important pickup for any team in all of baseball in the offseason was Alex Cora coming back as manager of the Red Sox. They didn't have a ton of different personnel come in. They lost good players. The pitching was a mess, but he's managed to keep them afloat, had them in first place for much of the year. Again, struggled recently, but they've come back nicely. They could come back nicely. They've come back overall over where they were last year. Again, dumpster fire last year. Single most important addition to any team in the offseason. Should be only a couple of minutes away probably from Mark Mancini joining us. Dusty Baker's got to get some accolades. Dusty does nothing but win everywhere he goes. Hasn't won a World Series. That's been the knock on Dusty. But, man, every team he's taken over, the Giants weren't that good, and they became good with Dusty. And we're consistently good. The Cubs. We all know about the Cubs in 2006. And can't think of the guy's name in the foul ball. Probably come to me shortly, but great job. Scott Service. Mickey Delaney, your Mariners. This guy would have been a contender. Maybe still will be. But he's probably dropped a little bit. Kevin Cash with the Rays. And then you got Tony La Russa. They'll probably be the major contenders. So a lot of great stuff happening in American League. Fun races. Lots of great stuff to talk about. And Yankees fans, I was hard. I'm not going to say I was wrong yet, because they've gone on these type of stretches before. This is their best stretch of the year by far. The last 12 games, I think they're 9-3. But it's a long, 50 games is a long time. They've got to hold it together, and their pitching is still an issue. And they've got to do. I mean, they need Cole back and healthy. They need Jordan Montgomery to go deeper into games. Talien's pitched great the last month, by the way. I believe he was the American League Pitcher of the Month for July. So he's pitched well, but he's got to continue to pitch that way. And it would be helpful if they got Corey Kluber back. Corey Kluber did throw some pitches yesterday. Aaron Boone said he looked pretty good, but again, even if he comes back, you're going to wonder. It's going to be a scary ride every day, every game he pitches, to see whether he's going to make it through or that arm issue is going to crop up again. We're going to talk about the Mets mess here in a little bit with Mark Mancini, but they're just in disarray right now. They had this division in hand, in much part because of how badly the other teams had played. But we'll see. Mickey brings up a good point. Chapman got hurt this weekend. He's going on the IL. So again, the Yankees are somehow doing it with just unknowns, especially in the pitching department. Yankees big deal. Back up to the Yankees again for a little bit as we wait for Mark Mancini to call in. There he is. Yankees big deal is still going to be partly Gardner in center field. Anyway, let's bring in Mark Mancini. Uh-oh. Hello.
Hey, Keith.
Hang on, Mark. Can you hear me? Yeah, I can hear you. Why am I not hearing you? Guys, let me know if you can hear Mark, please. Somebody comment. How are you, Mark? Oh, I lost you again. Bear with me a second, guys. Technical difficulties seem to be my want this month. I can hear you on my speaker, but I'm not hearing you in my headset. I don't know why. Bear with me, Mark.
Yeah. Take your time.
I'm looking to make sure they can. I'm guessing they're not hearing you, though. Let me reset my Bluetooth here. It's funny. My Friday show, I had technical difficulties as well. Good grief.
Yeah, those things come up. When I was doing Eastler, he faded in and out, and then I don't know what he was using, but he had to call back in.
Let's see how this works.
Just that cell line or whatever it was.
Now I got you.
Okay.
Awesome. As long as I can hear you in my head, I know they can hear you.
Okay.
Oh, Rick said he could hear you all along. All right. Well, anyway, welcome, Mark Mancini from Mancini Sports. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm listening to the most must-hear, must-see radio show sweeping the country on Sunday mornings. It's The Grind.
The Grind.
Love it, man. We're a bunch of grinders here, man. You get up, you start early, you get the listeners up,
right?
Take your vitamins, and you're ready to go.
I got to tell you, I love Sunday mornings. I love the covering. It's hard. I can't get everything in. I miss the NBA again, but if I'm going to miss something in the summer, the NBA is fine. But I welcome you. Listen, Mark, tell me a little bit about Mancini Sports and the shows you host and the other shows you produce real quick before we move ahead here.
Well, real fast, I do XM 203, Sirius 217. I'm with them on Friday nights, Sports Overnight America. Part of a KMET 1490 AM out of Banning Riverside, Saturday mornings at 10 a.m. Just loaded up with WWDB 860 AM out of Philadelphia, and that will start September 30th. Called Liberty Bell Smack, Philadelphia style.
Great.
I host a Pittsburgh Pirate podcast with Derek Brock, the first base coach. We do that twice a week, 15 minutes on a Monday and a Friday. And then if I'm not doing any of that, I run the Pennsylvania Purgatory Sundays. I, produce a lot of other shows, the ATL Prime Sports, the Philadelphia Phillies Alumni Podcast, Left Turn at Alcatraz out of San Francisco, Speak Your Mind with Patty Blyleven and Joe Rosenson. So, good things happening. We're trying to get a Vegas thing now. But we're blessed. You build it and they will come. And I think along the way, money comes and goes. Relationships are priceless. We know how tough this business is. We know how cutthroat this business is, but it doesn't necessarily mean we have to be that way.
Well, that's a great attitude to take. And you reminded me, I was trying to put your picture up side by side with me, and I'm not getting it good. Oh, that's better. I put a really flattering one up. You're talking into a microphone, so it looks like you're actually with me here. I owe Patty Blyleven a phone call. I'm glad you reminded me. I'm making a note right now, so I got to give her a call here.
Yeah, Patty's a great lady. Bert Blyleven's ex, and I call her the Blonde Bombshell, and she does a great show on Wednesdays with Joe Rosenson. They really rip it up, and they break today's topics in America, what's going on, and they talk to people about other things. So
excellent.
Blessed to produce that great show.
Good stuff. You got a lot of stuff going on. I love, and I've been on a bunch of Mark's shows that he's produced, and I've had fun doing that for sure. So we'll see where we go down the road. Real quick, Rick Sherlock's asked a question, so I can give him an update. One of our regular viewers, my brother-in-law, in fact, Drew, is missing today. He wanted to know where he was, and he's got family in town, so I'm sure he's tied up with that. He's one of our big contributors as far as commenting on the baseball scene.
I'd like to say hi to him.
All right. So anyway, Mark, what I want to talk about with you today, I know you're a Pirate fan.
Right.
And I also know you follow one of your other favorite teams is the Padres out west. So I wanted to focus on the National League races with you. I just got through talking a lot about the American League races, and I want to talk about the National League races with you. And we'll start in the East only because it's kind of what's the division that's turned around the most since a trading deadline. The Mets had a fairly comfortable lead going into the trade deadline, and that's all gone now. They're actually a game and a half behind the Phillies. Phillies did a great job, I thought, at the trade deadline. The Mets maybe didn't do enough, and maybe the Mets were only in the position they were in because the other teams in the division were underperforming. What are your thoughts on that race?
Well, I don't back down on what I say across the boards, and consistency is a key of making people believe in you. So I can rile, the city of Brooklyn there and Queens and that whole area, but I've been saying the Mets are frauds from the beginning here. I never had faith in them. I know Stroman came over. I know Carrasco, is just getting back. Syndergaard's been on the shelf. But when you sit here and you rely on one guy throughout the whole year and he goes down, now you're looking around and go, hey, where did Mama Bear go?
Yeah.
What do we do? How do we fend for ourselves? And DeGrom's out till next month. I love the Baez pickup. I think he's one of the best guys to pick up in this trading deadline. Never been an Alonso guy, and I know Alonso, had the big monster year. I need to see more consistency out of him. Yeah. I love Conforto, but then after that, their bullpen is a complete mess. It's a bunch of oil cans, with Familia and Diaz. They haven't been a winner since I can remember with Terry Collins, who I like tremendously, had conversations with him. Mm-hmm. They haven't been relevant, and, they bring in a cast of characters to manage his team, from Mickey Callaway and the whole sexual allegations with him to maybe now Steve Cohen. Who knows? Maybe Steve Cohen's deep pockets can bring something in here, but I'm not buying stock in the New York Mets. I had Washington and Philly going back and forth in this division. I like Philly a lot from the start. I think now with Washington having a garage sale there in D.C., it'll be all Philadelphia now. If they can get Kennedy to start closing all those games out and start bringing, the Narises and everything else, maybe for one batter or something, they got the bats. Keep your eyes on the Phillies. And Joe Girardi's a winner. So 7 in a row. Try to complete a sweep today in Philly. and being part of that Philly station now, I'm more or less looking at a lot of Philly sports now to get geared up for the end of September.
Mm-hmm.
And noticing the Phillies, after the Mets leave town, the Dodgers and Reds come in. So it's going to be interesting.
The Phillies, I thought, bringing in Kennedy and also Kyle Gibson that you didn't mention was a great addition for them. And something that's been flying under the radar, I think, with the Phillies is Bryce Harper is playing some of the most consistent baseball in his career here recently, and may have moved himself up into the MVP chatter in the National League.
Right.
And a guy that I've always loved and never seemed to quite play up to his potential. He's either hitting a bunch of home runs and hitting 220, or he's hitting 330 and hitting no home runs, and not hitting in the clutch, but he's doing it now.
Yeah, I had Harper to win the MVP in the beginning of the year. I've always been a Harper guy. I like those kind of guys like Machado. Sometimes they're misunderstood. People look at them as arrogant. I look at them as self-confident guys. There's a swagger you need in this game. Yeah. They bring it. When you look at the other guys here, I think the wild card in this whole thing is I think they got the best manager in the division. And quite frankly, who knows? I'd match him up with the best manager in the National League. I love Joe Girardi a lot. He's a proven winner. They got the best catcher in baseball in JT Realmuto. So, when you put it all together, I think it's the Philly faithful starting to believe in it. And, if they can, like I said, complete the sweep today, you get the Mets out of town, you're 2.5, you get a Dodger team that you don't know what's going on with. So I like the Phillies' chances to win this division. How far they'll go in the playoffs, I don't know, but at least they'll get in the playoffs. Yeah,
it's funny. One thing, you and I often agree on a lot of topics, but one place I have to disagree with is I'm not a big Girardi fan. After watching him for a lot of years in the Bronx, I just feel his teams play tight. He's got them playing well now. God bless him. I've never been a big fan of the way he handles the pitching staff, and his teams always seem to play tight because he's tight. But, right now he seems to be making it work, so we'll see.
Well, if you can survive in New York and come over to Philadelphia and keep it going, you're doing something right. But, they got a guy in that, front office that reminds me of Jack McKeon. Dombrowski is not afraid to pull the trigger. You saw what he did in Florida. You saw what he did in Detroit. You saw what he did in Boston. He'll build a winner there. It might be with veteran leadership, but, the Phillies are going to have a title in that town because Dombrowski has a great track record.
Well, let's move on to the NL Central, where your beloved Pirates are, and unfortunately, they're about I don't know, a year behind the rest of the division. They're about 25 games out of first place. I think you talked about great managers. I think the best manager in the National League is Craig Counsell myself, and he's got this team 6 games ahead now. The Braves are certainly a surprise. But the Brewers, after kind of playing some up and down baseball the first couple months, have been very, very good of late, and they have probably got the best pitching staff, I think. Well, maybe the Dodgers have moved up now with Scherzer, but I think they got one of the best pitching staffs in baseball for sure. What are your thoughts on the Central?
Well, I had, starting with my Pittsburgh Pirates. These guys are about 3 years away from being the Houston Astros minus the trash cans. Mm-hmm. They got the 4th best minor league system in baseball. They're moving up the ladder. They rated the Padres. They got their number 5 prospect. They rated the Yankees. They took a prospect out of there. Derek Shelton's doing a hell of a job. The front office, I'm not going to be biased here, but you can build around the Reynolds. You can build around the Hayes. 3 years, you're going to see the Pittsburgh Pirates challenging for quite a long time here. As far as who in this division that I think was going to do something, I still got St. Louis. I told you this before. Yeah. I like the Cardinals. They're going through injuries with that pitching staff. What Cincinnati's doing is remarkable. Minus Bauer from last year, Discalfini, going to the Giants. So the Reds are right in the thick of things. I think they're 2 games back of the wild card on the Padres. But the Brewers are a surprise. Counsell's a good manager. They got some horses there in Woodruff and Burns. And Hader coming out of the pen. The bats have been a little inconsistent. You pick up Escobar. Braun's been back and forth. Yelich has been back and forth. So I don't know how far the Brewers can go. It's a division where, the Cubs had a fire sale. They kind of look like the Godfather in some ways. They were throwing limbs all across the country. And you know what? I'll take my chances 3 years from now with my Pirates than I will with the Cubs. Even though the Cubs are a big market team, they got a lot of rebuilding to do in Chicago and in Washington. The last time I checked, the Nationals had the 20th ranked minor league system. So Pittsburgh's in good shape.
Yeah, I think you're probably right there. One thing I'll say about the Brewers, I was a little surprised they didn't trade for more offense at the trade deadline, and it's not done yet. I mean, we still got the waiver wire deadline here, August 31st, and a lot of guys will clear waivers. And a guy like Seager from the Mariners could be somebody that I thought they'd be after at the trade deadline. They still could get him, in the waiver deadline here this month yet. And then all these teams still have an opportunity to improve because there'll be a lot of guys that clear through waivers as happens every year. So talking about the bottom of the division as you were, I do like what the Pirates are doing. Yes, I love Brian Hayes. He's a really, really good looking young player. And the Cubs, I don't know. I think what the Cubs are going to do is you'll be determined by, or you'll be able to tell what they're going to do in the offseason. If they go back to try to re-sign Anthony Rizzo, then I think they're going to look for a short-term rebuild here and throw money at the problem rather than rebuild through kids. I think that'll signal what they're going to do. If they don't try to bring Rizzo back, then it's going to be a total rebuild, and they'll be at the bottom of this division probably for a while.
Well, here's the thing. I got to know Theo Epstein when I was covering the Padres when I started, my radio career, and even, looking back on a lot of things. And Theo was a media relations guy with the Padres, and I think when he went to Boston and brought them a winner in Chicago, and he saw what was going on, then he went to the, kind of backed off from the Cubs and went to the Major League Baseball front offices to work under Manfred and stuff. I think that was the beginning of the end of the Cubs. And Jed Hoyer is, trying to save, face here, trying to clean the scrambled egg off his eyelids there. But, when you don't communicate and, and now you got these guys saying, well, we were willing to sign extensions here, and the Bryants and the Rizzos and, the Baez and the Kimbrels, and the list goes on and on. I think it's sending a bad message to your fan base. And, I don't know, and like I said earlier, when you look at the Cubs and you look at the Nationals, this is the Mendoza line here. We don't know if they're going to be, also rans for years to come. They got money, but, I like the Nationals' chances more than the Cubs. The Cubs are looking like, the Iowa Cubs.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's funny. I got to back up before I move on to the West because I missed a couple comments. I'll let you comment on one. I'm just going to bring up here on your Pirates. Rick Sherlock, I put his comment up. He says the Pirates are 3 years away from being 3 years away, which is actually a very funny line. It may not be true.
But here's the thing. I think you look at consistency. I mean, they lost 70 games now, and they're when you look at that record, just to answer that comment, they had a winning season record against the Giants, against the Mets, fell a game short in the season series with the Braves and Padres. They went into St. Louis earlier in the year, took 3 out of 4. They're 0-3 against the Dodgers. They'll play them next week, so they can even their books with them. This is a team that, if you're above 500 and they're already 2-1 against the Phillies with 4 to go next month in Philadelphia, you better watch out. Now, under 500 teams, they have problems with. They've lost 3 straight to Arizona. They've struggled on, some of these other teams. But I will tell you this. If you're over 500 and Pittsburgh's coming to town, you better adjust the mirrors.
Well, they're out there playing hard. That's an important thing. Yeah. Carlos mentions with the Pittsburgh that they need a new ownership. Now, I'm not so sure about that, and it doesn't sound like you think that way either.
Well, nothing gets a lot of flack. I like the pickup of Ben Cherington. He's learned a lot. He's a great guy. Came over from Boston. And you see what he's doing. He's retooling that farm system. You keep retooling it, figure out who you want to build around, and you got the number 1 pick in Henry Davis. Buster Olney more or less said they had the best draft of any team in baseball. So they got pretty much 4 first-rounders there. And, When you got Davis there, a Louisville guy, he fits that, grit and grind of Pittsburgh, the black and gold mentality. I'm feeling really good there. I mean, I'm glad they didn't go after, I thought, the guy to go after was Kumar Rocker. I'm glad they didn't go after him, arm problems. And, if you went after a Leiter there, Leiter would have been a problem because, now he's going to want big money, and this could turn into a J.D. Drew situation or John Elway. Hey, I don't want to go to your city. I'll go back in the draft. So they found the guy they wanted. You build around him. You got Cabrian Hayes. You got Reynolds here. This is a team now. You start solidifying it. You watch 3 years, there'll be a winner in Pittsburgh.
Well, they built it up before. I mean, when Clint Hurdle was the manager there, and they built it up, and they had a real good team. They were this close to being in a World Series a few years back. And my only question would be whether they can maintain it once they get there. That's always been the question in Pittsburgh. Once you got to start paying your guys that are maturing, right, and continue that success. So. Hopefully
and not only that, when you looked at a few years ago, if it wasn't battling the Cardinals, then you had the Cubs in the equation, and then here came the Reds, and everybody's been taking their turns and knocking Pittsburgh around in that division. You've had the luxury. It wasn't a luxury the Dodgers had, where they ran through the division of Sisters of Mercy.
Yeah, agreed. Well, good luck to the Pirates. Good luck to the rest of that division. Let's move on to the West. Probably the most intriguing battle. Well, the East is getting pretty interesting, obviously, but the West, where I've assumed all along, and I still will assume, you're going to get 3 playoff teams out of there. Just a matter of the order that they're going to be. The Giants continue to surprise. The first team to 70 wins yesterday. Great move picking up Chris Bryant at the All-Star break, but the Dodgers, they're 4 games back, but they're lurking there, and they probably made, in my mind, Mark, they made the biggest trade in the history of trade deadline trades, because they got two guys in one trade, bigger than any trade ever made at the trade deadline, in Scherzer and Turner. And Turner, to me, he's an MVP kind of candidate in the National League as well.
Well, here's the deal. I've never been an Andrew Friedman guy. I've said it across the board. I'll probably get ripped in Tampa and L.A. That's okay. I just think, when you look at bright young guys across the board, Theo Epstein, Ben Cherington are ahead of Andrew Friedman. Theo's got the hardware. He's won in 2 cities. Cherington, with the Red Sox and stuff. But I just look at Friedman and I say to myself, this guy's had a lot to work with over the years, and he just doesn't know how to buy at the general store. And what I mean by that is, I'll break it down for you. The Dodgers go to the store in the winter. They buy bats. They bring in the big name like a Mookie Betts.
Yeah.
And they'll get starting pitching in there. But the biggest problem the Dodgers have, and they don't address the elephant in the room, is the relief pitching. I love Blake Trinan, but after that, it's a cast of characters. It's almost like the Philadelphia Phillies bullpen now. But the Phillies addressed it with Ian Kennedy. Kenley Jansen has lost velocity on that cutter, and they refused the part company with him. You got Joe Kelly. You don't know what you're going to get with him.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch of guys down there. And that will be the Achilles heel that kills the Dodgers. The definition of insanity is trying to do the same thing over and over again and get different results. Until they address that elephant in the room, they're not going nowhere. Now, if you look at the Dodgers, and the Dodger fan will come up to me and say, well, we've won, 3 titles in the last since 81. No, really, you've only won 1 title since 81, and that was 88, playing 162 games.
Yeah.
You played 20 games tongue-in-cheek last year and won it, and you basically won it in 81 on a strike year. So, to me, I'm not looking at the Dodgers as putting up there with these other teams, because you have to play 162 games. I don't like to give, trophies to everybody in attendance, even the last place guy, because it loses its luster. But the Dodgers got frontline pitching, and if I'm the Padres and Giants, I'm wearing that frontline pitching down to get in that back end of the bullpen. And here's where the Padres and Giants got him. You got Jake McGee over there in San Francisco. You got good relievers to set him up. And in San Diego, they've got, Melanson, who Atlanta probably wishes they had back. And then you pick up Daniel Hudson. They've got the horses. They got guys in that pen that can keep it going. Their big problem is trying to stave off to get Fernando Tatis Jr. back.
Yeah, what else has been holding the Padres back? I mean, they've started to make a move a couple of different times. They're 7.5 games out of first place. Obviously, they're going to make the playoffs, but it just feels like there's just something. And again, Tatis has been in and out a couple of times. He's a great player, and you can't dismiss the fact that you've gone, whatever. He's missed 20, maybe 20-some games once this stint's over. What else?
Well, I think it's continuity. I think Caratini they picked up from the Cubs. Darvish, has been struggling of late. But they got gamers like the Giants do. And there's another difference. You pick up a Frazier, you got the Hosmer, you got the swag of Machado and Tatis, you got Cronenworth, Profar. I think what the deficit the Dodgers are going to realize is the back end of the bullpen that blows leads. And number two is I don't think the Dodgers have the depth to keep up. They've lost a lot of guys over the years. How bad would you want Verdugo and Hernandez back from the Red Sox? You've lost guys that ate up innings in Strickland, Maeda, Ryu. You lose a Jock Peterson.
Yeah.
You got a Chris Taylor there. You got a Gavin Lux. And here's the deal on Trey Turner that you mentioned earlier. Trey Turner is signed through next year, but he doesn't want no part of the West Coast.
Yeah.
He's an East Coast guy. So the Dodgers are going to have to try to convince him to stay so they can probably let Corey Seager go. So it's going to be interesting what the Dodgers do. But I think, they have guys like Kershaw and Scherzer and Turner, who I respect, they're gamers. But after that, it's going to be interesting. Bellinger's batting 1-something, which is not good.
Gosh, yeah.
Betts has moved to second base now. Muncie's having another career year. But I just think when the dust clears, and I've said this before from the start of the season, San Diego's going to win this division by 5 games. Now, that's 12.5 games they got to make
That's
up in
a
the
lot,
standings.
50 games, Mark.
Yeah.
They're going to have to win about they're going to have to win probably 40 out of 50 at least to pull that off.
Well, I put that in the start of the year. I got to stick with it. And, even if they don't win it by 5 games, I still figure they'll figure out a way to win the division. They got a lot of games left with the Giants, over 10, 11 games with the Giants left. And, when they're 3-3, I think with the Giants right now, they're 7-3 against the Dodgers. The Dodgers have broke even 8-8 with 3 more in San Francisco just before Labor Day. So the Dodgers have had problems, opposite of Pittsburgh, where Pittsburgh dominates upper 500 teams. The Dodgers, on the other hand, have had problems with teams over 500.
Yeah.
You see the Giants, you see the under the record with the Padres. They've lost the season series with the Cubs, the Dodgers. They're losing the season series to Atlanta. So there's some things here where the Dodgers have beat up on the Arizonas and the Colorados. That's the big problem. There's a third thing in this equation that we don't really look at. Dodgers having problems at upper 500 teams.
Good point. The Giants still the best story in baseball right now in my mind, but again, they got to continue it for another 50 games. So
with Posey and Belt and Kepler, I don't know what he was drinking in Philadelphia, but he brought it over to San Francisco, and they bought into it.
Yep.
And is Kepler going to be like Bruce Bochy? Probably not, but he's got the Giants playing baseball. And they've been consistent. They got Crawford and Bryant. They got gamers over there. Going to be tough to dethrone those guys. And I will tell you this: if the Dodgers brought in Scherzer, I believe, for that 1-game playoff with the Padres, because that's where I think it's headed. If it comes to that, if the season ends today, and they probably back out Jansen out of that pen and start throwing Kershaw and Buehler and stuff like that, because they know right darn well in Los Angeles you're not going to go far with Kenley Jansen saving games unless you got a 6-run lead in the 9th inning.
Good point. Let's talk real quick. I want to get your front runners for some of these postseason awards. There's 50 games left. A lot could change, obviously, in the next 50 games. But Well, I'm going to start with the manager of the year only because we just talked about Kapler, and he would have to be, even though I wasn't his biggest fan as he headed into the San Francisco, he's got to be the front runner for that award now with maybe Girardi coming up on his heels here as the Phillies are starting to really play some good ball, as you said before. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think Kapler will get it, but I like Girardi a lot. But Kapler holding off the Dodgers and the Padres in that Wild West. I think Kapler is going to get it. If we're looking at manager of the year across the board, and I know they've struggled of late, I like Alex Cora, because when you look at the Red Sox the last few years, since they won it with Cora, since he was let go and they brought in Renicky, and Renicky had him in last place, and then you bring back Cora, and look what he's done with these guys. Had him in first place. So I think all around I'd give it to Cora. But if we're looking at the National League and the American League, I think Kapler's going to end up winning it. But my vote goes to Girardi.
Good. I think you can't go wrong either way. Even though I'm not a big Girardi fan, I can't fault what he's done there. And we'll dive into the American League more next week. I think we'll do the same thing next week. We'll break down the American League and the stretch run there. Because as you said, and I don't want to go too deep into it, Alex Cora, I've said a couple of times on my shows, is probably the most important offseason addition any team made was Alex Cora going back to the Red Sox. So,
players manager.
Yeah, definitely. National League, staying there. MVP award. Tatis, I think, would have been the front runner. Maybe still is. He's missed a lot of games. DeGrom would have had a shot if but he's missed way too many games. And pitchers always have a tough time as well. Max Muncy's played well for the Dodgers. I think a name that you got to think, two names you got to think about that don't come right to the top of your head. Bryce Harper, depending on what he does down the stretch. And Manny Machado, you mentioned earlier, very quietly has put together a really, really good season out in San Diego. What do you think?
Manny Machado, man, 275, 21 home runs, 70-something RBIs. His on-base percentage is unbelievable.
Good defense at third base, too.
Yeah, he's been a mainstay. Tatis has been down, and you're seeing what Machado's doing there. He's brought the swag chain to San Diego. So Machado would probably be, right now, I had Harper win this thing, but, who knows? With Tatis being on the, IL there and, with DeGrom missing some time, Machado could win this thing. Muncy's had a great year too, but I think, there's a lot of pieces in L.A. that, Muncy's, been benefiting from being slotted into that batting order, even though they haven't been doing anything with, Betts and Bellinger. But with Machado, I think Machado would be the front runner right now if you're going to give an award.
Yeah, and the Cy Young Award we'll touch on quickly as well. I mean, DeGrom, if he'd been healthy, I think would have been a shoo-in for third straight Cy Young. I don't know that I don't think he's going to have enough games.
Well, the guy I like DeGrom a lot. I thought he should have won it last year too, make it 3 in a row here. But the guy I like, and he's been coming on, and I'm not a big Dodger guy, but Julio Urias is my choice right now to win the Cy Young.
You know who I like speaking of the Dodgers, I picked Walker Buehler before the year to win the award, and he got off to a rough start, but he started to pitch much better of late. He's 11-2.
Well, the problem with the Dodgers, and I saw the game against Houston, is, if you match the Dodgers tick for tack, like they did with Buehler, and he makes one mistake, and you can make him pay for it, then he's going to get saddled with the loss, because sometimes that offense can't figure out good pitching. I think to beat the Dodgers down the stretch, you're going to need frontline pitching with a great bullpen to take them out.
Yeah, I look at Buehler kind of like DeGrom. I mean, you can't look at the wins and losses because his ERA is hovering around 2, and he struck out, a man per inning.
Great guys come out of Vandy.
Yeah, they do. That's a good point. Well, listen, Mark, we're going to wrap it up for today. We covered a lot of ground in the National League, and we'll probably do the same thing as I mentioned, because Mark is going to be joining us on a fairly regular basis anyway, maybe every week. We'll see how that goes. And maybe you guys will even get to see him on video soon, he promised me.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that goes. And Mark,
I'm so blessed to do the most must-see, must-hear radio show here on this network, and blessed to be a part of it, my friend.
Well, I appreciate you coming in. I look forward to doing more stuff with you here and on your network, and lots of fun having you on, Mark. Thanks for coming in. Have a great Sunday afternoon. And guys, go check out Mancini Sports because there's a lot of great shows you can listen to if you like podcasts. So check it out.
Thanks for the kind words. And I look at it like I'm just a big piece of a huge puzzle.
Excellent. Thanks, Mark. We'll talk to you again next week.
Thank you, my friend.
All right. Have
a good one.
Have a great Sunday. Bye. So Mark Mancini from Mancini Sports. Guys, check out Mancini's sports podcast. Unbelievable shows all across the country. He's got shows in Pittsburgh, as he said, Philadelphia, Atlanta, Cleveland, San Francisco, Arizona. And I've appeared on a bunch of them, and I've had a lot of fun doing it. And I plan on having Mark on a few more almost regularly, depending on his schedule. So, and we'll talk a lot of baseball. We'll talk other things too as we get into football season. Guys, we're going to wrap it up here. Been a great Sunday morning. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. I know we couldn't get to the NBA again, but if something's got to take a back seat in the summertime, it's going to be the NBA. Sorry, guys. Wednesday night, the debut of TGI Sports Talk College Football Huddle. Hope we see some of you there. All you college fans, will share it with all the college groups that we belong to. Next week, Darrell Evans on Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern Time, right here live on TGI Sports Talk on the Northeast Streaming Sports Network, guys. Thank you. Have a great Sunday. See you next week. Bye-bye.
I mean, you can see right now, without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about a team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboy fan is here, so I had to make sure he knew how much I hate this team.
I'm ready.
I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem saying it to his face. Oh, I'm from Brooklyn. Hey, guys, any